Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into a market event that really tells a story about the M&A landscape in pharma right now.
We're looking at the acquisition of Marinus Pharmaceuticals, a NASDAQ-listed biotech.
And they were bought by Immedica Pharma AB, a Stockholm-based company that's been making some very aggressive moves, backed by some serious capital.
Exactly. And this wasn't your standard takeover. This was what's called a strategic snatch and grab of a distressed company. Our mission here is to really break down the deal, figure out what went so wrong for Marinus.
And how that created the perfect opening for Immedica's global ambitions in the rare disease space.
That's one.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. The hard numbers. The deal closed pretty fast, right? February 11th, 2025.
Very fast. The structure was a clean tender offer. Immedica came in at 55 cents per share. All cash.
55 cents.
Yep, which valued Marinus at around $151 million on a debt-free basis. And just like that, Marinus stock, MRNS, was gone from the NASDAQ.
A swift end. That $151 million figure, it just feels low for a company with an approved revenue-generating product. Was this a bargain?
It absolutely looks like a bargain, but only if you separate the asset from the company's let's say, financial health.
Right. And how did Immedica fund this? It shows their new firepower.
It really does. The money came from two places. They took out a new loan for $72.5 million. And then, and this is the critical part, they did a new share issue to their existing owners for about 100 million euros.
So their private equity backers were ready to write checks immediately to get that U.S. market access.
Instantly. They didn't hesitate.
And what was the prize? What was the specific asset that made them move so aggressively?
They got the global rights to ZTALMY. That's the brand name for a drug called ganaxolone.
And ZTALMY is a crucial orphan drug, right? A therapy for a very rare condition.
That's right. It's approved in the U.S., the EU, Great Britain, a pretty wide footprint. It's used for treating epileptic seizures that are associated with something called CDKL5 deficiency disorder, or CDD.
CDD. Remind us what that is. When we talk about unmet medical need, this sounds like a patient group that's in desperate need of options.
Oh, absolutely. CDD is a devastating neurodevelopmental disease. It starts very early with frequent, really difficult to treat seizures, and it comes with significant intellectual disability.
And it mostly affects children, right?
It does. Something like 75% of rare diseases affect kids, and ZTALMY is for pediatric patients, ages 2 to 17 and older. So it fits right into that high-need, high-impact segment of the market.
So just to recap, Immedica gets an approved revenue-generating drug with regulatory protection. Seems like a home run.
It does.
Which leads to the obvious question. If the asset was that good, why was Marinus forced into a sale at 55 cents a share? Let's get into the distress signals.
This is where the story gets pretty dramatic. I mean, before this deal was announced, Marinus was in a full-blown existential crisis. Their stock price had crashed by over 95%.
95% from a 52-week high of what? Over $11?
$11.26, yeah. It was a complete capital wipeout for shareholders.
Annihilation. What happened? What triggers that kind of collapse?
It was really a perfect storm of clinical failure and financial weakness. Even though ZTALMY was approved and bringing in money, their future pipeline it fell apart.
The next big drugs failed.
They had two major high-profile setbacks in their clinical trials, the RAISE trial and the TRUST-TSC trial. For a small biotech, one big failure can be enough to kill market confidence. Two is a death sentence.
So pipeline failure created an immediate cash crunch.
Immediately. And on top of the clinical failures, you had the administrative pressure. They were facing a very real threat of being delisted from NASDAQ for not meeting the minimum bid price.
The definition of a forced sale. They had revenue coming in. What was ZTALMY doing?
It brought in $8 million in Q2 of 2024, and they were projecting $33 to $35 million for the full year. But that revenue just wasn't enough to outweigh the pipeline risk and the delisting threat.
It's incredible. The market had zero faith left.
None. In fact, the 55-cent price was so low that it actually attracted legal scrutiny from shareholders questioning if it was adequate. Marinus just ran out of time, and that created the opening.
Okay, now let's flip the coin. How was Immedica in the perfect position to be that buyer? What were they up to in 2024?
Immedica was going through its own transformation, shifting from, a regional European player to a global one. Their 2024 numbers were impressive. Net sales hit almost 100 million euros.
A big jump year over year.
25%.
Yes.
And their operational health was solid too. Their adjusted EBITDA was nearly 36 million euros. So they had the foundation.
But the real catalyst was the new ownership.
That's it. The big money came in. They got major backing from the global investment giant KKR while keeping their dedicated healthcare investors, Impilo AB.
So they suddenly had the capital and I assume the mandate to go hunting?
An aggressive mandate for rapid expansion. And they immediately started building the infrastructure. They set up a commercial hub in Chicago.
A clear signal they were coming for the North American market.
The biggest pharma market in the world, yeah. But just as important was what was happening with their own pipeline.
Right. Let's talk about their next big asset. The drug, this whole acquisition really seems to revolve around Lourgies.
Lourgies. It's their key proprietary product. They're already launching it in Europe and the Middle East for another rare disease, Arginase 1 deficiency, or ARG1D, another serious genetic disorder.
And the U.S. status.
This is the crucial part. The FDA accepted its application for priority review. That means they're fast-tracking it, with an approval expected around mid-2025. The timing here is everything.
Okay, let's connect the dots. Immedica has its own blockbuster rare disease drug, Lourgies, about to get approved in the U.S.
But they have no U.S. sales force, no distribution, no relationships with U.S. payers, no infrastructure.
And buying Marinus gives them all of that, instantly.
Precisely. The Marinus deal was a platform acquisition, not just a product acquisition. ZTALMY gives them immediate revenue, yes, but more importantly, it gives them an established U.S. sales force and existing distribution channels. It de-risks and massively accelerates the launch of Lourgies.
It saves them years of work and millions in spending. That makes the $151 million price tag look even smarter.
It was a strategic masterstroke.
Let's zoom out a bit to the investor context. What's the big picture rationale here? Why are firms like KKR pouring capital into this very specific niche?
It's the incredible momentum in the orphan drug sector. The market's growing at a 12% compound annual growth rate. That's twice the rate of the regular non-orphan drug market.
Twice the rate.
And the total market size was estimated at $221 billion in 2024. It's a huge space.
And what makes that growth so durable?
It's a combination of high unmet need and really powerful regulatory incentives. The diseases are severe, there's often little to no competition, and governments offer things like extended market exclusivity and big tax credits to encourage development.
It reduces the financial risk compared to, say, launching a new cholesterol drug for millions of people.
Dramatically.
So Immedica now has 2 of these proprietary orphan drugs.
Yeah.
What are their stated goals now that this deal is done?
They've been very clear and very ambitious. The goal is to have both ZTALMY and Lourgies in full launch in the U.S. by the end of 2025. The speed is staggering.
And their head of North America expects the U.S. to become what?
The single largest contributor to their global financial performance within just a few years.
That's a huge bet on this U.S. platform they just bought.
Speaking of financials, let's look under the hood at their balance sheet. It's interesting.
It is. You have to look at their intangible assets. At the end of 2024, they were carrying over €1 billion in intangible fixed assets.
€1 billion in
Yeah.
things you can't touch. What does that tell you? It tells you their entire business model is a bet on intellectual property and market rights, not factories and equipment. I mean, the value of the rights for Lourgies alone is over €500 million.
They're betting big on future sales and regulatory protection. So how does that connect back to the Marinus deal?
They recognize some goodwill, right?
They did. $12.2 million in goodwill, according to the preliminary allocation. And that number is very telling.
Why? What does it represent?
Goodwill, in accounting, is the premium you pay over the value of the actual assets. It's not the value of the drug, ZTAL. It's the value of the non-physical things.
The platform.
The platform, the sales infrastructure, the relationships with doctors, the regulatory know-how. They paid a $12 million premium specifically for the ability to hit the ground running when Lourgies gets approved.
So they didn't just buy a product, they bought instant market access.
Right.
And they got it at a discount because the public market was panicking.
Exactly. They saw a value where everyone else saw terminal risk. All right, that brings us to the segment where we discuss an outrageous but plausible trade idea based on the strategy we've just laid out.
And let's be crystal clear for everyone listening. This is not financial advice. We are just connecting the dots based on the strategic playbook we've observed.
So the playbook is clear. Immedica, with KKR's backing, has an active M&A and licensing agenda. They need more than just 2 drugs to meet their growth mandate.
They've shown they will buy commercial stage assets when a public market overreaction creates a distressed valuation. And that strategy is repeatable.
Which leads us to idea one, the second bite play.
The logic here is to find the next Marinus. You'd look for a small, niche, commercial stage, rare disease biotech.
And it has to be in one of Immedica's core areas, right? Genetic diseases, oncology, or rare neurology.
Correct. And here's the key. The target has to be trading at a depressed valuation because of a very specific, identifiable failure. Maybe one bad trial result or a regulatory snag in a market that isn't its main source of cash.
So the public sees the failure, but a strategic buyer like Immedica sees the discounted platform.
Exactly. The investment thesis here isn't that the science will suddenly succeed. You are betting purely on that company being the next opportunistic acquisition target for a well-funded private buyer like Immedica.
You're essentially buying the infrastructure and the existing cash flow at a deep discount, knowing that KKR gives Immedica the runway to absorb the risk the public market is pricing in.
It's a pure M&A arbitrage play, banking on private equity's drive to consolidate these high-value orphan drug assets.
So to wrap this all up, Immedica grabbed Marinus and the ZTALMY platform for a song, not because the drug was bad, but because Marinus was facing an existential crisis after its pipeline failed.
Right. The deal was all about securing that critical U.S. foothold to turbocharge the launch of their real prize, Lourgies. The whole story really just shines a light on the huge risks in this market.
The potential rewards are massive, but for a small public company, 1 or 2 clinical trial failures can be fatal.
The volatility is just extreme.
And that volatility leaves us with a final thought for you to consider. Given how common failure is in rare disease trials, as Marinus just showed us, how reliably does that failure create these unique M&A opportunities?
Does failure in the lab just become another financial tool for consolidation in the boardroom? The Marinus acquisition certainly suggests that for the right buyer with deep pockets, pipeline failure doesn't destroy value. It just makes acquiring it much, much cheaper.
A fascinating look at how private capital is reshaping the healthcare world. Thanks for diving in with us.